Welcome back. I'm Michael Ray. You're listening to Thought-Provoking Talk on Dresser After Dark. Barbara Peters is with us. She's the author of He Said, She Said, I Said, 7 Keys to Relationship Success. She's a gifted communicator with a laser beam ability to cut right through the tangle of personal drama and get the results in relationships that last for a long time. Licensed professional counselor. Her counseling style is interactive, respectful, non-judgmental, and supportive. And let us say, Barbara, hi. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolutely. When we talk about relationships, my goodness, in today's world, you're talking about 50 to 60% divorces in the first year. With all of your experience, do you find, and this is a question now, do you find that people have no idea what a relationship is?
Actually, I do. They really don't have a clue.
Yeah.
They think that it's just going to happen, and they don't have to do anything to get it there.
You'd think that there would be a class starting in about grammar school to say this is what it is and this is what could happen, or you'd have to get a license to do it to get into a relationship. People walk into things and have no concept of what they're doing, why they're doing it, and they think because they think that way, the other person should think that way also.
Well, actually, I think they should have a communication class early on in grammar school as well. I think that would really be helpful.
No question about it.
I don't think people have a clue on that one either. Actually, I know they don't have a clue on that one. I didn't either early on, so it's understandable.
Yeah, and by the way, and who does have clues when it comes down to that? You know, you and I meet, and I don't want you to see what I'm like. I want you to see what I think you'll like about me, and all of a sudden I've got this mask on. I've got a disguise, and you're going out with somebody that doesn't exist. Then I become who I am, and you say, hey, you're different. Deep down, I'm not different. This is who I really am. You weren't like this when we first met. Yes, I was, but I wasn't going to show you. That, I think, is a major problem with most relationships.
Of course it is. I see that so much in my counseling practice, and it's kind of that reality shock that hits after all the courtship, and, actually they they actually get what they want or what they're after, and it's solidified, and then that's it. Now it all comes out.
Yeah. There was a show that I did a couple of years ago, and the book was about the first kiss, which could make or break a relationship. And the impetus behind the entire book was about somebody saying to somebody else, how would you like to be kissed? We don't do that. And the first kiss can make it or break it. Unless you ask somebody how they like to be kissed, how do you know? You just can't take it on yourself to know, which brought it to this. And this will move right into where we're going to go tonight with the topic. I thought about this, and I thought about, if you met somebody, and what would be an interesting question if you said to them, how do you receive love? Because let's say you and I meet, in the way that I've learned to give love or receive it is a wink, a look, a tone of voice, an expression, something. And you, on the other hand, let's say if I buy you something, that shows I love you. Well, 2 years go by and I'm winking at you and I'm looking at you and I'm doing all these things to express love in the way that I know how. 2 years later, I walk in, you got your bags packed, you're leaving. I said, where are you going? Well, I'm leaving you. Why? You don't love me. What do you mean I don't love me? Love you. Love me. You never show me. And I think that's really the problem. We don't ask, we don't know, and we have problems.
You are right on. This is exactly what I deal with on a daily basis. They are afraid to tell each other what they need or what they want. And I often hear a wife will say, oh, well, he should know. He should know what I want, or he should know what I need. I'm not in the business of reading smoke signals, is what I tell them. And I also say what you might have needed in the beginning, when you just got married or when you were courting, was one thing. As the years go by, you have children, you're growing up, you're growing older, things are happening, you might need something different. So if you don't share that with your partner, he still thinks you needed what you needed 10 years ago,
well, sure.
if he even knew what you needed then.
You know what
So what I'm talking about is so much what is going on. The thought and the perception is not the same as what the reality really is.
Let me give you a great analogy to that, and I think this really this really hones in on it. When you're 14 years old, you have a definition of money and you work with money that way. When you're 25, you have a different definition of money. You work with it a little bit differently. There's responsibility there. And when you're 50 and 60, you look at money completely different. And, today, however old you are or however old I am, we're not going to deal with money the way we were when we were 15. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. It changes. You shift in consciousness, you shift in perception. And when you do that, then your world can work for you.
This is exactly the whole focus of that book. It's like when somebody says, I love him, but I'm not in love with him, okay? I hear that very often. And what I tell my clients and my couples is I feel that you can be in love forever. It just looks different. When you were in love at 14 or maybe 20 or 25, it looked one way. When you're in love after you have children, it looks another way. When you're in love when you maybe are retiring, it looks another way. And when you're in love at 80 or 90, it looks another way. But I'm a romantic at heart. I feel you can be in love forever. It just looks different.
Okay, but a lot of these people, when they lose the feeling, when they lose that whatever it was that they had in front, many times it's almost impossible to recapture.
Okay. Well, what I do in that case is I often ask them what it looked like when they were first getting together. What was it like when you met? What was it like when you were courting? What was it like on your wedding night and your honeymoon and when you first got married? And when they tell me, when they have good thoughts, when they tell me it was this way, it was that way, and I see their faces light up, I go, well, can you remember that? Can you go back to that feeling? Can you grab some pictures, play a video, go back and feel what that's like and bring it current? Because what happens is they get stuck in their careers, they get stuck with children, they get stuck with financial concerns, and they easily forget what that was. So I bring them back there. And I ask them to try to feel it and to try to see it again. And I think that really helps.
Okay, and then they
have it in order to go back to feel it.
Now, by the way, what is it that couples can do so they don't have to get to the step to have therapy? Because I've talked to so many people, I listen to so many people. It almost seems like everybody I run into and I listen to what they're talking about, they need some kind of help because they can't do it by themselves. The alone thing. People need to be held by the hand and taken through, and obviously step by step, 7 steps. You got to be able to say, this is what you do, number 1, number 2, number 3, and that's a great way for people to grasp.
Well, that's a really tough question. Premarital therapy is around, and depending on how it is and who it is, it can be helpful. But I think one of the biggest problems with couples is when they notice something going wrong or something that's not working for them, they don't try to address it with each other. And they think that it's going to go away, or they just get too caught up in the everyday stuff and this will just pass, and then the days become weeks and the weeks become months and the months become years, actually. And one of the questions when I ask, they come in and say, how long has this been going on? And it's amazing. I hear things like 8 years, 4 years, 5 years. And they don't actually stop it ahead of time or get proactive and say, let's see what we can do about this. And sometimes it does involve checking out with a counselor or a clergy or whatever, is comfortable to get them back on track. But you're asking me what they can do to prevent it, and pretty much it's pretty universal. If they don't have the skills beforehand, if they haven't gotten a good start, if they don't know who they are as a person, what their values are, what they need, it is going to pretty much get to this in many cases. I don't mean to sound negative because I'm passionate about what I do. Sure. I love what I do. Barbara, and I have success, or my couples do.
Yeah, Barbara, it goes back to what we were originally talking about. They should be taught in grammar school, but we're not. And that's why the divorce rate, the problems, the rest of it, and especially in the culture that we live in today, there was a time, you said marriage vows, I love you for the rest of my life, or whatever it was at the time, and that's the way it was. And there were movies. I remember when I was a kid, the Doris Day movies, there was a rule that if you were there was a bedroom scene, 1 foot had to be on the floor. Those days are gone. And, people are seeing so much, ideas are implanted, and, they're told how they're supposed to be through the media now, not through the therapist. And I think it's a very confusing world for a lot of kids out there today.
Yes, it is. It certainly is. And if they haven't had good role models as parents, then they don't see the right thing at all, and then they get very confused. If they grow up in a home where they've seen anger or yelling or verbal abuse, they tend to normalize that, and they tend to think that's what love is if the parents stay together through this. So then when they go out to find their own significant other, and let's say they find somebody who doesn't verbally abuse them, who is really sweet, who is not arguing, they will almost turn away from that and say, no, this can't be love, because that's not what I know of love.
Yeah.
So very often they find exactly what they grew up in because that's all they know and that's what they think it looks like.
Do we not go through life trying to prove ourselves right about ourselves?
What do you mean?
Well, you said it. That's what it looks like. I've got to be beaten up, otherwise it's not normal. There's got to be an argument. You're going to give me too much, you're going to be too sweet. Something's wrong with it. It's too good to be true. So I'll create the situation.
Well, that's only if that's what they've seen growing up. Yes, that's what they will normalize because that's what they think it is.
Yeah.
And even if you see a different, it's very hard because you end up finding what you grow up with. That's the role modeling, and it's very important.
No question about it. And that I think really is the key. We prove ourselves right about ourselves. And you just said it. If that's the model, then if we don't get that model, something's wrong.
Pretty much, and they can't, and it doesn't feel right. It feels uncomfortable. Comfortable was, let's say, the arguing. Uncomfortable is no arguing. What do I do? And they don't even know how to do it. They don't even know how to. And the other, let's take the flip side. I've had couples who have grown up in where their homes have never seen arguing, never seen any parent disagree. And then when it comes to the real world and things come up that they don't see the same, they think differently about, this person doesn't even know how to argue or what conflict is.
So we create some conflict. And I really believe that what you're saying is spot on. And most of the problems don't come from the relationship of today. They come out of reactions from the past. Unconscious recognition of something in the past that causes you to react today. And that person that looked at you that certain way, smiled at you that certain way, said something in a certain way, the battle starts. It's there all night long. And it had nothing to do with them. It's something that you recognize somebody else did that caused the conflict.
It's an old message, right. It's an old message. And I tell my clients, that message might have worked for you when you were a kid. Look, you had to stay in your home when you were a kid. You couldn't support yourself. But that message no longer has to work for you anymore. It's time to change the message. Take the tape out. Put a new tape in.
Well, isn't that all about your basic message? Is, you shift, I'll say it a different way. You shift. Well, you said it. You shift in your perspective, and you don't look at it the same thing, and the definition is different, then the world is completely different.
Well, that's change your thoughts, change your world, and it's a way of looking at things. It's a way of putting a different thought, and then you're going to behave differently. You're going to do something different. And if you keep the old thoughts, then you're going to keep behaving the way that was and expecting those same things. So yes, it's change your thoughts, change your behavior, change your world.
And the battle is basically this with communication. If you're the male and the female, the says to you, did you take the garbage out? Is it a question or an accusation? And I think that has to do with past reactions and whatever. And I think that in and of itself with communication is a very powerful tool so you don't run into those things. I ask you a question. I didn't accuse you, but you accused me, and then the night's gone again.
Well, and I'm very I get very petty with my clients, and I show that I do a lot of role playing with words, and I rephrase that. I will make it sound. I said, "How would this sound?" Or if you heard this from your wife, I'm your wife, and I'm going to say this. How would you feel? I use the criticism sandwich, which is a name I've given this. It's given other names. Wrapping the criticism nicely, and you'd be surprised at how the person's going to react to that. If they hear it in a different way, they're going to definitely react differently. It's like another thing is, how do you define something? One of my clients will come in and say, he doesn't spend any time with me. Absolutely no time. I want him to spend time with me. Okay. The husband says, I'm with her all the time. I'm sitting there. I'm in the living room while we're together in the room all the time. Well, then I have to talk to them, okay, what is your definition of spending time? Well, the guy's definition of spending time is he's in the room. Doesn't matter if he's in his computer, watching his TV, listening to music on his earphones. He's in the room. He's spending time. Oh, the woman's definition of spending time is him reacting, interacting, talking, sharing, playing a game. So they're not even on the same page with the definition.
Yeah, by the way, there was one thing I remember, we're just about out of time, Barbara, but my ex-wife and I, when we started to break up, the one thing that we really had in common, I looked at her one day and I said, I realized what we have in common. And she said, what? I said, we both like you.
I love that. That is great.
And that was years ago.
That's fabulous. I might use that. I use a lot of humor with my clients.
It's all yours. It's all yours. Now, we're about out of time. Do you have a website we can find you at? We can find your books on the website, right?
Yes, you can.
Oh, okay. Good night.
Good night.